Now we're going to tackle the door. A little cheat, which can be helpful if you don't want to have to keep referring back to your measurements and you already have the openings made. You can use the dimension tool. If you click on the top half and then the bottom and click over, you'll get the actual measurements of your doors for as long as they were done correctly. And you can always erase these later. So just to have for reference, I can see that my opening for my door is 2 feet wide and that it is 6 feet 5.5 inches tall. Remember, it was a little odd. Usually it's 6'8" to 7 feet for a door. So my door was probably shaved down a little bit, and nothing is ever perfect in a house, which you'll soon find out, even though the architect has the best of intentions. So what we want to do here is we want to basically create a blank to work with like we did with the window. Typical doors are only about 1.25 inches thick. Depends on the type of door. An interior door is usually that size. If it's an exterior door, it might be a little thicker. Depends what it's made of. We're going to use 1.5 to make it easy, even though our walls are 5 inches. But if you really look at a door and how it's set into the wall, you'll see that it actually is not very thick in the wall. Keeping that in mind, we're going to start with our blank again. And this time we're going to pull a little sliver that will give us the base for our door. And it's going to be 2 feet, comma, 1.5 inches. So now I'm going to pull that up. And I'm going to pull it up to the 6 and 5.5 inch mark. So 6 feet, space, 5, space, 1/2 inch. That should be the exact height of our door. This door is a little complicated. I didn't really sketch this to a proportion, but basically there's 4 little panels in the door, and that's surrounded by, again, the stiles, and the rails are the parts that are horizontal and the parts that are vertical are the rails. And so I need to make up some numbers which will make that look good. So I've decided that I'm going to offset the outer side 4.5 inches. I'm going to click the offset tool and I'm going to go in 4 and space 1/2 inch. Because there's that middle part, I'm going to divide this in half with my line tool, and I'm going to pull a guideline on the outer side. Let's call it 2 inches on one side and 2 inches on the other side, just to kind of give me that space in between to make those panels. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the pencil tool and I'm going to divide that up. Remember, if it's not clicking right away, you should zoom in. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that center line and the guidelines that I had. This area here is going to be where my panels are going to be. One of the things I also observed on my door is that the panel going across here, the height is almost 10 inches. So I'm going to go ahead with my guideline tool, and I'm going to click from the bottom and I'm going to go up roughly 10 inches. Then I also noticed that the rail up here, I'm going to make it about from here to here, and then I'm going to hit escape and I'm going to go from here to here. The space between here and the next panel is not 10 but rather about 4. So I'm going to use my tape measure tool again and I'm going to pull that down 4 inches. Then with my pencil tool, I'm going to draw across for the other panels. I'm also going to draw in where this panel would start. And I'm going to go ahead and delete the lines that I don't need anymore because I won't be needing them, and I'm going to delete the guidelines because things just start to get confusing once you start to have all these lines. So sometimes it's good to erase them as you're going. I know that somewhere along here is where my other space is, so I'm just going to pull a guideline to where I think that would look pretty good right here. You can always measure this out if you want to. And then I'm going to leave the same amount of space that I did for the upper rail, which is about 4 inches. This one was actually a little bit larger, and it was probably about 7 inches. So I'm going to make it 7. And then I'm going to come across again with my pencil tool, and I'm going to click and make those lines to divide up those spaces. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to delete the ones I don't need. And this is where, again, your powers of observation are going to be really important when you start to make your doors, because you'll start to see how when you start to make these lines and then take away things, it starts to make things very realistic. And here I'm going to push this in, not very far, because if you really look at those panels, and I'm simplifying the panels a little bit, it really is not pushed in very far. And again, it's not very thick. So I'm going to push that panel in 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to double click on all of those so that it applies to all of them. And then if I want to, I can go around to the other side and do the back side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that again. And you guys can just watch until it's done. Here is our door. I'm going to get rid of any of those lines. I'm also going to get rid of these measurement lines because we don't need them anymore. Again, I'm going to triple click this door, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to group it. Then I'm also going to add it to the components window. So I'm going to go up to the window, turn on the components window, and I'm going to right click this door, say make component, and I'm going to call it a 2 foot wide by 6 foot 5.5 inch tall panel door. Click create, and it adds it here to the component window. The next part I have to do is move these into place. One of the first things I have to do is actually rotate this door. So I'm going to use the rotational tool, which is over here. And you'll notice that here it's snapped to the blue arrow, which is what we want, or because that's telling us it's flat on the top of the door. Again, this is a 2-click process, so we have to click to anchor the rotational tool, and then we click away, and you can see that I'm on the red axis here, so I know that everything is parallel. I click again to anchor that, then I start to turn, and when I turn and it locks onto the green arrow, then I know that my door is perpendicular to the surface of the area where I want to put it. Then I just go ahead and click again. Now what I want to do is I move this into place, and to do that I'm going to use the move tool, which is right here next to the push-pull tool. You'll notice when I mouse over it, it will automatically highlight. Now one of the things about moving objects in SketchUp is it's sometimes best to grab them by the corner and pull them into the right corner of the model. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can see that door is in my model. Now, depending on which side of the wall the door swings into, you may want to pull it over to this side or pull it onto the other side. And I believe that this door is on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing with the window. I'm going to click on it with the move tool. Now you want to be very careful because when you do click on it, you want to make sure you're at an endpoint. So I'm going to click on this endpoint, and I'm going to try to line it up with this part or the far corner of my model. And sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't work, but you can see right now it just did it. Now I've got my window and my door in there. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use the warehouse.